Welcome back. Well, hockey in South Africa is seen as a sport that caters for a minority. Someone who broke through that is former Proteas goalkeeper Sanani Mangisa. She notched up 112 caps in a 10-year international career. She joins me now to talk about the state of hockey in South Africa and also lets us in on how the post-professional career is treating her. Sanani, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Waking up early these days, are you?
I do. I run in the morning, so this is not new to me.
Oh,
okay. But it is a bit early for a Saturday.
Excuse us. Well, it's obviously been 2 years since you retired. How has retirement been for you? What have you been up to as well?
It's been good. I prepped myself for retirement because I was scared of this phase and this period. I'd seen other athletes go through it. It's not an easy phase. You go from being at the peak of your career, hockey is all you've known, and I think I blogged a little bit about it, just the mental aspects of it, going from being, almost a hero in your sport and in that environment, and then going into whether it's a corporate environment or a business environment and having to learn new things in that space. And you're walking away from something you've, as I say, you've known for 10 years and 112 caps, and then you find yourself in an environment where you know how to excel, but you just need to learn the ropes and what's done in the business industry.
Well, maybe just share a little bit of what has adjustment been for you, because you do mention that a lot of people do struggle. So what did you do differently in your preparation for the retirement?
So towards the end of my career, I started recognizing that the route I wanted to go to was probably like sports sponsorships, agencies, that type of environment. Even with an undergrad finance degree, I knew that's not what I wanted to do. So with that, I started exploring who are the players in the industry, and I got a job actually that allowed me time away from work when I was at hockey, and also just time to test and see what the industry was about. I think that was good prep for me, is that you're still in the sport, you haven't let go yet, but at the same time you're dabbling in the sport, in the career, and knowing what's for you and actually just exploring what you want to do later on.
Hockey is not a sport that you would find Mthatha. I'm from that side of the world. But you and Marissa Langen, who obviously used to be your former CEO at Hockey South Africa as well, Luntu Nhloko, came from that side of the world, and you managed to break through an elite sport. How did it all begin for you? And just quickly, where did you pick it up? And also, did you notice that you actually picked a sport that generally black people just don't pick?
Yeah. So from Mthatha, I was playing sport, running, athletics, and those kind of things. There was no hockey. And then when I moved to Kokstad, that's when I had to play a summer sport and a winter sport, and the only winter sport was hockey. So I had to do it. And my context with hockey was with Ulundu. I'd heard about her playing, and that she was from Mthatha, and then I started looking into the sport. And by the time I got into the sport, I was like, okay, I know that's a reference point, Lundu. And I knew nothing about hockey. I was athletic, I wanted to be outdoors, but I knew nothing about hockey. So I was like, let me dive into this thing and see what it's all about.
How important is access to a sport like hockey in South Africa? I mean, one of the key things now, obviously, in any sport is transformation. And also there are players for transformation movement who are just as vocal online now about wanting to transform your sport. Firstly, how important is access? And also, do you understand their struggle, what they're trying to fight for?
So firstly, access and opportunity, I would call it the same thing. It's you need to be exposed. You need to be exposed to the highest level of nutrition, fitness-wise, hockey, understanding the game from a mental perspective. So that needs to come at an early age. Some of us get it on later in life, where our peers have already been doing that for 6, 7 years, and it needs to come early in life. So we need to be providing these things to youngsters, these opportunities at a very young age. And I think that's what we're striving for. That's what we know, that it will actually balance the playing field, if I could call it that. Access and opportunity just balances the playing field later on in life when you're wanting to get selected from your senior provincial teams and your national teams. And I think you've mentioned it. There's a big call for transformation within hockey at the moment, and I can understand the struggles, because the same things we were going through when I was starting off 10, 12 years ago is the same stuff that the current group of players is talking about. And I think where the difference is that we might have started talking about it after our career. Yeah. These guys are talking about it in their career, not risking it all, essentially. You're standing up like your Colin Kaepernicks. They're doing it while they're playing, going, if I get out, it's fine. I've stood up for a cause, which I'm proud of. It's something probably we could never do. We understood these things, but we weren't vocal enough about them within the sport, within transformation and getting opportunities. But these guys are now within the sport and doing it.
Austin Smith, 4 years ago, he's obviously the former men's hockey team captain. 4 years ago, he wrote a blog, a column, if you like, talking about the issue of transformation. Obviously, he was quite somebody who was prominent and very close to the story. And he was talking about, he refers to how cricket, rugby and football have gone in over these years. And he says, and I quote, with seemingly endless budgets and backing from the corporates and government entities, they've made great strides in making their sports accessible to all. Is that not the key? A country where all South Africans have equal opportunity to participate in a variety of sports of their choice. I believe that should be our goal instead of forcing percentages. Do you perhaps maybe when you look at white players in the country that sometimes they just don't get it?
I think it's always been a gripe of mine that it's seen as forcing percentages, right? The percentages are there because the opportunities aren't given. So you've got the players, but they're not allowed to be played, or they're not being played. So government then finds itself in a position to go, guys, we have to then implement numbers. And that's what it's about, is that players have, adequate players, good enough players, merit players, have not been given the opportunities. And that's when we come and go, guys, we've given you enough time to rectify the system, but now it's not changing. But we've known that there's 6, 7, 8 good black players that you're not playing, and this is why the numbers are there. And I think that's the crux of it, has been misunderstood for a long time, and we need to change that narrative to understand that it's not a forcing percentages, forcing numbers game. It's not a game, actually. It's a simple stuff of we haven't transformed, we haven't changed, we haven't given equal opportunities to players of colour. Not my favorite word, but
it's a reality,
it's a reality.
Unfortunately.
That's how it's described, it's a reality. But this is now what we have to do to self-correct.
Yeah. South Africa hockey struggles at world stage. What has been the problem? From someone who was inside, what were you just not getting right?
Yeah. So in 2014, we went to Valencia to try qualify for the 2016 Olympics. And after that tournament, I remember coming back and I had a media interview and an internal interview. I said, we can no longer work on the camp model. So our funding allows us to have a camp tour, come back, have a training camp, have another training camp tour. We need a 9 to 5. Hockey needs to be your 9 to 5. We are competing against guys where they come in on a Monday and they go to gym 8 to 10. Later on, 12 to 2 is a pitch session. They have lunch together, and then another gym session in the evening or a running session. So that is Monday to Friday. They not live together, they live around a training or a centralized training program, and that's the difference. Because your camp model, we were able to keep the gap, maybe let's call it that small, on the camp model. International hockey and international sport is just getting more advanced, that the gap is now here. And that's what's going on with SA hockey, is that we saw our women's team didn't perform well at the World Cup last year. It's just that gap is getting bigger. So how do we rectify that? One, we always talk about it, it's money, it's budget, it's sponsorships, it's having money to run a fully centralized program. But we can't do that unless we see hockey on TV for the sponsors to be able to get on board and to understand. So it's almost like a chicken and an egg. Where do we start? You need someone who's going to blind back it and go, hockey, here's 15 million across 3 years, do what you need to do and build the program. And then from there on, other sponsors jump on board, because now we're on TV, we're showcasing international hockey games within the country. We toured big tournaments, a World Cup is coming here, a qualifier is coming here. Then the access to the sport, it's been seen, and that's when the numbers increase, the school sports. The kids see the sport and want to play.
Quick one, will you get involved with your federation to implement the ideas that you seem to have? And also, I know you're studying towards, you're doing your honours now in brands and getting, how brands work. Will you be interested in just getting involved?
Probably not at the top. I don't want to get involved, to be honest with you, in the federation. I would like to do it at the bottom. So making sure that players like me get those opportunities from a younger age. So I think that if I see myself, where can I make the biggest impact, I think it's there rather than the top.
Thank you so much, Sanani, for your time. That was, of course, where we leave it for now with Sanani. She was, of course, the former Proteas hockey goalkeeper who